in Korean art during the Joseon dynasty. So without further ado, I would like to introduce HJ.
Could you let me start my video? Thank you.
Hello, HJ.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining today, everyone. What a beautiful day today. And thank you so much for coming in front of your computer once again during weekend. First, I would like to acknowledge my wonderful colleagues in the museum who have made this program possible. Mira Win, creative media producer, filmed me in the galleries and edited the video draft so many times. You will notice how much time and effort she has devoted to the video, which we will watch shortly. Zach Rose, Associate Director of Communications, has initiated and managed this Art Escapes project, a new series that involves many people, including all the curators. Many of us, including myself, are not comfortable in front of a camera, but Zach's diplomatic encouragement and support have made this new project successful. When Zach and I started to talk about the theme for this video, we both automatically thought of and agreed upon to do one about Korean ceramics. The two masterpieces in the Korean art collection are ceramics, the Goryeo dynasty celadon ewer and the Joseon dynasty whiteware round jar. Both objects now have new display cases that enhance our understanding of the multi-layered complex around the two objects, and of course, enhance our appreciation of the two masterpieces. I'm proud to present the two masterpieces along with other traditional Korean ceramics highlights today. In this video, I would like us to ponder the aesthetics underlying traditional Korean ceramics and how we can relate ourselves to them and be inspired from them. Today, I'm very pleased that the two artists, contemporary artists, whom I mentioned in the video you will watch shortly, are with us virtually. Thank you, 구본창 작가님 from Seoul, Korea, and Hyonjeong 작가님 from San Ramon, East Bay. Hyonjeong 작가님, do you have something to say shortly? Introduce yourself.
Okay, good afternoon. This is Youngjun Lu. Thanks for including me, Hyonjeong, in your tour. Thank you.
Thank you. It is so great to see you in your studio. 구본창 작가님. Could you unmute yourself, 구본창 선생님, and talk?
Sorry. Hi, I'm Buncheong from Seoul, Korea. It's a great honor to participate in this wonderful project. And also I appreciate that this wonderful technique that I could join to your project from Seoul, Korea. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you both. I'm quite embarrassed to show this video in which I was the only person featured, but I hope you will get a glimpse of our beautiful Korean art collection and you will visit our Korean art galleries in the near future. As Nicole said, our museum is reopened with some city restrictions that we have to follow, but we have so many exciting programs and exhibitions, including likeness and legacy in Korean portraiture, lined up for upcoming months and years. So please consider becoming a museum member so you can fully experience all we have to offer. Now let's watch the short video of my tour of Korean ceramics. Welcome to the Korean Art Galleries in the Asian Art Museum of San Francisco. Today, I'm giving you a short tour of the galleries focusing on Korean ceramics from the 12th century to the 18th century. Through this tour, we will learn about the development of Korean ceramics spanning about 700 years, experience the diverse styles and techniques used in ceramics, and of course, simply appreciate the beautiful artworks. As a Korean curator of Korean art, one of the most frequent questions that I receive is, what is Korean art and what are the distinct characteristics in Korean art? To generally define Korean art or aesthetics is difficult, and one should consider the complex historical context of Korea. But earlier scholars and connoisseurs have discussed what exactly Korean art is, and they have tried to single out or generalize the characteristics of Korean art. Some said Korean art is artless art and contains a great earthy flavor. Some pointed out the naturalism or the following of nature's laws in Korean art. A famous 11th century scholar described it as splendid but not extravagant. Through this short tour on ceramics from Korea, I hope we also contemplate what characterizes traditional Korean art, and we can discover an overarching aesthetics quality. Let's begin with the celadon ewer made in the early 12th century. It is one of my favorite artworks in the collection because I feel it demonstrates what ultimate beauty is and how an artwork transcends time, certain qualities which I believe are the basis for calling an artwork a masterpiece. This work is full of balance. As you see, the form is delightful, highlighting the balanced elegance of the lotus leaves on the lid against the simple angles of the body. Such a contrast creates a harmony between the softness of lotus leaves and sharpness of the body. One of the great things about being a curator is that I am allowed to handle actual artworks in the collection. When I first held this ewer during the installation, I was surprised by its light weight. This means it was made of high-quality refined clay, and the body could be crafted quite tightly and thinly as a result. The glaze is evenly applied throughout, from the top to the bottom of the ewer. The artisan even applied the glaze inside the ewer. When you visit the galleries later, please take a look at the vessel from various angles, especially from the top and the bottom. The foot ring tells a lot of stories about the work as well, including how the ewer was glazed and fired. Now you can understand the reason why we created this new display case to let the ewer float for us to examine the bottom. In the conventional museum display cases, the bottoms of ceramic works are invisible. Our new display case allows you to see that the glaze evenly covers the bottom and the foot ring is very clean. This control or precision is rare, and it tells us the amount of effort the potter put into creating this masterpiece. The ewer shows a level of perfection in the overall process. The highly refined clay and glaze, the perfect condition in firing, and of course, the highly skilled craftsmanship made this work one of exquisite beauty that demonstrates the aesthetic sensibilities of the Goryeo dynasty. balance, refinement, and a little bit of risk. Just imagine how many failed attempts there were before this one perfect example appeared. Goryeo dynasty celadons have been revered by many connoisseurs and scholars in East Asia. The 13th century Chinese connoisseur Taiping Laoran praised the exceptional color of Goryeo dynasty celadons, such as this ewer, and wrote that they were the best under heaven. When you compare the ewer with other Goryeo dynasty celadons in this wall display case, you will understand why the ewer is a masterpiece. The success rate of having the right celadon color and form like our ewer is quite low. Fewer than half emerge from their firing with this color, and scholars today still do not fully understand how it was achieved, since knowledge of the exact process was somehow lost. Even if you acquire high quality clay and glaze, there is uncertainty in firing processes in kilns. When there is too much oxygen, the color of the ceramic will be reddish, while lack of oxygen will make it more grayish. Goryeo potters, being perfectionists, usually destroy the less perfect pieces and threw them away. Can you imagine how the potters might have felt when they had to discard their own hard work? It is for this kind of high craftsmanship and pursuit of flawless outcomes that collectors have admired Goryeo dynasty celadons for centuries. A new dynasty brings new ideology and aesthetics. The establishment of the Joseon dynasty in 1392 and its adoption of Confucianism as a state ideology brought many changes to the arts. Celadon production gave way to buncheong ware and white porcelain. Buncheong wares were only produced for about 200 years during the 15th and 16th century. Unlike the celadons of the Goryeo dynasty, the previous dynasty, which had been produced in specialized kilns for upper-class patrons, buncheong wares were produced across the Korean peninsula for all social classes, ranging from upper-class richer vessels to everyday wares for use in the kitchen. Interestingly, the term buncheong, meaning white-slipped stoneware, is a term from the early 20th century. On surfaces covered with white slip, potters employed various decorative techniques such as inlay, stamping, incising, brushing, and dipping. And the designs are usually bold, whimsical, and even rustic. Some people say that the surface designs are reminiscent of modern abstract art, and they have certainly fit in with the contemporary aesthetics. Buncheong had an enormous influence on Japanese ceramics as well. Japanese invasions during the Joseon dynasty in the late 16th century are known as the Ceramic Wars because many Korean potters were forced to go to Japan, where the style came to be respected as Mishima wares there. Following those years, buncheong wares developed rapidly in Japan, while white porcelain production became dominant in Korea. Whiteware painted with underglaze cobalt blue decoration is commonly known as blue and white. In Korea, blue and white porcelain began to be produced in the 15th century and flourished during the 17th and 18th centuries. Indigenous cobalt is found on the Korean peninsula, but because it produced dark and uneven tones, potters preferred the cobalt imported from West Asia through China. Written records reveal that cobalt was extremely valuable and more expensive than gold at the time. Court painters were even sent to paint on white ceramics with cobalt to create vessels for various royal families and other aristocrats. In fact, this is a popular spot for our museum storytellers. Many Korean folk tales or children's stories begin with the specific phrase, once upon a time, a long, long time ago, when a tiger smoked a pipe. Interestingly, this phrase is visually represented on this jar. The tiger and magpie motif is popular in Korean folk paintings, as Koreans once believed that tigers had the power to ward off evil and harm, and that magpies were the messengers of good news. The abundant use of cobalt, delicate surface design, and the large size of the jar strongly suggest that the owner was from a royal family. Let's move to the other whiteware that is quite different from this decorated blue and white jar. We are in front of a white globular jar with the modern name moon jar. A moon jar always has a white color and round shape without any decoration on the surface. Moon jars were only produced for less than 200 years, from the late 17th century to the early 19th century. But moon jars have become a popular traditional artwork today. Very recently, these jars became more trendy thanks to RM, leader of the K-pop group BTS, who tweeted about his appreciation. You might know that BTS songs in 2020, Dynamite and Life Goes On, both placed #1 on the Billboard 100 list. I'm glad celebrities are shining a light on historic art like this. A moon jar is difficult and laborious to make. Historically, because the white clay on the potter's wheel could not sustain the height and weight, the jars were always produced in 2 sections and attached together at the waist. The joining of the 2 parts often left a seam, and our museum's moon jar is no exception. To complete moon jars, potters go through several steps, and there are often natural defects or unexpected outcomes, which create each moon jar's unique characteristics, and to our eyes, enhances its beauty. Some, like our moon jar, have debris or ash dirt on the surface, which probably happened in the kiln when firing. Although all moon jars are round in shape and white in color, they often have a wide range of hues and shapes depending on what happened when turning the potter's wheel or firing. The moon jars' embrace of uncertain, unexpected outcomes and natural defects have been much valued in Korean aesthetics. And these aspects of moon jars have inspired many modern and contemporary theorists and artists. Bernard Leach, the father of British studio pottery, once explained how Korean ceramics have the utmost beauty of deformity that is free from dualistic man-made rules. Joseon dynasty potters were extremely skilled, but they could transcend the constraints or burdens of perfectionism, achieving an earthy naturalism in works as well as in practice. This video work displayed next to the moon jar and the recently acquired contemporary paintings are also great examples of traditional moon jars' enduring impact on Korean art. Buncheong, an established photographer in Korea, tries to visualize the lifelike, vibrant qualities of Korean moon jars in his video work. Buncheong reinterprets our moon jar, accentuating subtle changes in the jar as it ages, while capturing its characteristics that are not easily appreciated with the naked eye or in standard color photos. He restores it with hypnotic vitality. The museum always invites you to participate in this kind of dialogue between the past and the present, which is why we continue to acquire artworks that enhance such a conversation. Youngjun Ryu, a leading local artist based in the Bay Area, was also inspired by the reimagined display of our moon jar in the museum. like Buncheong Yeongjun-ryu captures her own discourse with the traditional jar in this new series, Allegory of a Moon Jar. Her large paintings are subtle but impactful, expressing a deep emotional connection with the humble forms of the moon jar. When artworks of yesterday speak to us today, beyond time and space, the experience becomes very meaningful and even exciting. It is hard to outline the definitive aesthetics of a whole nation or culture. However, I hope you are able to develop your own ideas or feelings about what underlies Korean art. We have appreciated the perfect balance and elegance in the celadon ewer, the technical innovation and bold design in buncheong wares, the whimsical but highly skilled painting on the tiger and magpie jar, and the naturalism and the imperfect beauty in the moon jar. Through this tour, I hope you are able to enjoy the distinctive and diverse styles and techniques in these ceramics, as well as what can be considered most Korean in Korean art. Art that is splendid but not extravagant. Thank you for watching. 감사합니다.
Well, thank you for that beautiful video. So everybody, you can start putting your questions into the Q&A. And I'm also really excited to say that while AJ will be answering questions, buncheong was also open to answering any questions that you have for him
Hey,
as well.
Nicole,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
microphone is acting really peculiar. So I'm wondering if we might have you try plugging it in and out. No, it isn't. I'm going to mute you. And then why don't you try unplugging and plugging in the microphone and then unmuting yourself. Sorry, HJ.
How do I sound now?
It still sounds weird. 1, 2, 3, test. Great idea, Sarah. Please use this time for Q&A. So do you have an external microphone now, Nicole, or using the onboard mic from the computer?
Now I unplugged my microphone.
Okay.
Can you hear me better now?
No, not particularly. No, not at all. So it sounds like the onboard microphone might be an issue. If you don't have another microphone, the only thing I could suggest, well, there are two things I would suggest. One of them would be for Sarah to actually deal with the audio and have her ask questions. And then in the meantime, you might try lowering your volume on your microphone, which I can't do, but that's done in the, next to your mic settings on Zoom, there's an audio settings feature, and you would just turn down your microphone. It's usually set on automatic, but if you click automatic and turn that off, you can turn down that setting a little bit.
Better now?
I wish it was. No.
Okay, well, how Sarah take the Q&A.
Great. And this is what show business is, folks. So thank you, Sarah. I'm gonna get off mic now.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to step in for Nicole. You may recognize me from the previous Art Escapes, but I'm going to jump in and do this Q&A. So it looks like we have some good questions that we're getting. Definitely keep them coming. Let's see. I was hoping to answer or ask, I can't answer the first question. What were the moon jars used for and who would have owned them?
Scholars are still discussing about the exact functions of moon jars. Some said that it was made for holding some grains or even liquid. But some said that it was made for only appreciation because the Joseon dynasty, the state ideology was Confucianism, and moon jars really fit well with their taste and ideologies. Let me give you one interesting example. Lium Samsung Museum of Art also owns really large moon jar, and that moon jar has a little bit of stains. And the conservators and curators, they analyzed what the stains were from, and they found out it's the stain from canola oil. But the thing is, scientists don't know whether that canola oil was from 18th century or 20th century. So still, yeah, scholars are talking about that. The owners, because it was, in the video I mentioned that it was so difficult to make and create one moon jar because most moon jars are like, they collapse because of the weight. So because of the rarity at the time, scholars think, art historians think that the owners were mostly upper class aristocrats.
And do you know how long it might take an artist to create a moon jar or other pieces of ceramics, because they seem very delicate and so much love and energy and perfectionism can go into these. So about how long would it take to create these?
Interestingly, I might have to promote our Korean art department's new project, which is upcoming, and will be shown quite soon. We commissioned a contemporary ceramist in Korea to recreate exactly same size and same form of our moon jar. It took more than half year because potters, they fire the kilns every month or every day. They only fired twice or 3 times a year maximum because they have to repair the kiln and then prepare. So I might have to say that half year to make from the scratch, from the material making glaze, making and refining the clay, and then until the biscuit firing, and then final firing. It might take about half year.
That's much longer than I would have guessed. I probably would have said a couple of weeks or maybe a month. So that's really interesting.
So there will be a new video of Dong-sik Lee, the potter, the contemporary artists recreating our moon jar quite soon on our website and in the galleries.
And you mentioned that one of the pieces you were surprised by how light it was. Are the moon jars very heavy, or are they also very delicate in nature?
So in the video, I posted out that, one of the benefits of being a curator is I can touch and feel the temperatures and the weight of our ceramics or artworks. Celadon ewer was made by very refined clay and very thinly. The clay was thinly made, so it was very surprisingly light. And when I couldn't handle by myself the moon jar, 2 handlers and preparators should handle the moon jar, and I was the one in the video. I was the one who selected the right position of the jar. So it's really heavy. Maybe I can say 20 times heavier than the ewer.
Wow. Yeah, you definitely need 2 people. I wouldn't want to be the one to have to carry that on my own. And let's see, it looks like we have a lot of really good questions. Let me look through here and see if I can pick something. Let's see. Oh, we have so many good ones. It's hard to be able to pick. And we have a question from B. Again, I guess we'll stick on the moon jar theme. Are the two parts of a moon jar thrown on the wheel, or were they hand built?
The two parts, it's like two bowls. They were thrown in a potter's wheel and then put together. So if you see the video, the new video of Dong-sik Lee, you will see how delicately and how heavy one half part is, and how much kind of like how difficult and challenging to lift it and turn and joining the two parts.
And was the clay used for the moon jars from particular areas of Korea?
Yes, mostly from Gyeonggi province, about 1.5 hours by car from Seoul City. There were several royal kilns there producing whiteware ceramics. And through the written records, we know that there are some areas in provinces that they send the clays to that area, to the kilns, royal kilns or major kilns in Gyeonggi province. One is from Gangwon province and in Yanggu city. And that clay is so interesting. That clay has some dots. So when fired, if you see a munja, traditional munja or whiteware with some speckles on the surface, it's the clay was from Yanggu, Gangwon province.
And were they sought after were different people, because I know that they're very rare, but did different people seek them out because of those delicate embellishments like the freckles?
I think, Sarah, you are, okay. I couldn't.
Oh, let's try again.
I think my connection is unstable, so yeah.
Do you know if the moon jars or any ceramics, if you mentioned that there were sort of frecklings, would those styles be sought after in different areas?
What can you repeat that?
Yeah, would people be interested in collecting or acquiring those different kinds of, like if they had freckles on them, would people really want those opposed to just more of the plain ones?
Actually, at that time in the 18th century, 19th century, there is a written records that they were really annoyed by the dots, the grayish or black dots on the surface using the Yanggu city clay. But now I think like people really like and put high aesthetics on that specific clay ceramics.
Let's see. So we had earlier there was the blue and white with the tiger, and were ceramics typically used for storytelling?
No, actually, our museum highlight was used for storytelling, but no, actually blue and white, especially blue and white with cobalt ceramics, was very rare and very special at the time. So it was for only limited collectors or users. So I don't think that it was used for storytelling.
Okay. And how does the moon connect to the making of a moon jar? Are there connections to other arts or craft work like that?
Moon jars somehow, in the video, I said that it was produced only less than 200 years, and it was not connected at all with other genres of artworks. But it was during the 20th century when connoisseurs and art historians and theorists were looking for Koreanness in Korean art, because from 20th century, there were so many development and modernization and westernization going on at the time. So some scholars were looking for Koreanness. And so what is Koreanness? What is Korean aesthetics? And they looked for artworks, and they found buncheong in buncheong wares and moon jars, some kind of like Koreanness that I mentioned in the video.
And we have a question. In the video, you said that the colors varied on the oxygen levels. If the oxygen was perfect, do you know what the colors might be?
It will be like the color of our hue. So I see some other questions here talking about your color. And celadons came to Korea from China around late 8th century or 9th century. But Korean potters made very distinct Goryeo dynasty color. And some, even in Goryeo dynasty, a scholar, like represented scholar, Lee Gyubo said that the color of Goryeo celadons is like a cold water running, clear cold water. So if you come to the museum, I recommend, of course, you have to come to the Korean art galleries, but I recommend and I suggest that you go to Chinese art galleries and compare the colors of Chinese celadons with our hue. So there are so many, factors to make that specific color and utmost beautiful color. There are so many factors like, the perfect firing and very refined clay. But I think also the glaze is very important. Goryeo dynasty celadon glaze is semi-transparent or almost transparent. So you can see the depth that the clay is holding, that the clay, some kind of like reaction of the clay and glaze. But if you go to see the Chinese celadons, the color is like olive color. So you will see that, the Chinese celadons, they have non-transparent glaze. That's why you don't see the depth on the surface. And I don't think that the color is like Goryeo dynasty celadon color.
Is that what they desired out of their glaze? Did they want to try and achieve a more heavily pigmented glaze, or were they happy that it was a little thinner so that the clay could shine through and color the piece?
Yeah, even at the time during the Goryeo dynasty, Chinese collectors were eager to collect Goryeo dynasty celadon because of that color, the mysterious color, someone said. So when they were some of the tributes list, the Chinese emperor really always they put in the top lists that they want. The wish list was celadons during the Goryeo dynasty. And in Chinese celadons, there is a similar like Goryeo dynasty celadons. It's called Liu wares, Yoyu. So it's, I think in the world, they have only less than 50 wares now.
And it looks like we only have a few more minutes left. Here we have an interesting question. Let me make sure I get this to you correctly. There is a double gourd ewer with bamboo patterns in our collection. Do you know why they combine these two natural motifs in one ewer? And what's the bamboo pattern? What does the bamboo pattern mean for Korean art?
So bamboo is one of the four gentlemen in paintings or in East Asian art. So bamboo means being upright but flexible, as the bamboo in nature represents. So I think potters wanted to combine some of very interesting combinations. So like double gourd from nature, fruit, but then also the plant. So the shape-wise double gourds, because also double gourd in paintings or in East Asian artworks, it symbolizes good fortune. So, the good fortune with, upright and foreverness, green, foreverness, not dying, kind of like that kind of life, kind of symbolism combined together. There are some examples of the same form with same decorative surface.
And did you say that that was one of four? And what are the other three?
So one of the four gentlemen in East Asian paintings is chrysanthemum, bamboo, plum blossom, and orchid. And I know that our docents have a tour. I really wish that we resume the docent tours. So one of the theme is about East Asian painting, and they talk about the four gentlemen.
And I think this is going to be our last question. We have, how did these treasures survive wars? And I guess to expound on that, does that, has war impacted the rarity of these? Were a lot of them lost, or were they able to be protected in some way?
I do remember when I was in graduate school and in Korean painting history class, we learned only less than 10 extant paintings from the Goryeo dynasty, non-Buddhist paintings. There are about 120 Goryeo Buddhist paintings, but non-secular paintings, there are only less than 10 examples in the world. As I mentioned in the video, Korea, because of its geopolitical situation, there have been really several wars before 20th century too, like the 14th century Japanese invasions from 1392 to 1398 really devastated the country. Half of the population died. And of course, there are several wars against China, and 35 years of Japanese colonization period, and of course the Korean War. So it's really, really hard and to study art history, Korean art history, and we are eager to know what North Korea has, what the Pyongyang Museum collection is about, because art historians really, really want to have exchange exhibitions or programs with Pyongyang museums, but someday.
And besides the Asian Art Museum, what is your favorite museum to be able to see Korean ceramics?
Brooklyn Museum has wonderful ceramics, and Boston Fine Art. It's wonderful ceramics. But we have most comprehensive Korean ceramics collection.
So on that note, I would like to thank you for your time, and we really appreciate everyone who is able to participate. We hope that if you're on the East Coast, you'll be able to visit some of those museums mentioned. And if you're closer to us, we are really excited to be open, and we can't wait to welcome you back. If you've already been into the museum, please come again. We hope you'll see the galleries and be more enlightened and enjoy your experience even more. We can't wait to see you. And if you enjoyed this exhibit, we invite you to participate in future Art Escapes tours. The next one will be this month on the 27th, and I will be hosting it. And we just want to thank everyone. We want to thank everyone involved, and thank you, HJ, and thank you to our artists and our technical assistants. You can see why everyone is so needed, and we really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
And thank you, Sarah and Nicole and John.
Yeah,
job today too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.